It's about creating art, an extreme art form. It's no different than having, a male and female lead in a play.
When I go into a match with a man or anyone else that's not female, I go into that exactly the same. I'm Jessica Troy. I'm a professional wrestler from Sydney, Australia. We're here at the Pro Wrestling Academy. I've been wrestling for about 7 years now. I recently became a coach for PWA, which was really cool. So I teach the beginner class, which we call core. So that's people just starting out. That's where Ash started, obviously. So I've been helping her training for about 6 months.
My name is Ash Myburgh. I've been training here at PWA Academy. My first training session was actually in London at a place called Pro Wrestling Eve, or Eve Academy, which is an all-female wrestling school.
My first wrestling match was actually a rumble, which is just sheer panic, until I step out from the curtain and I'm just in my happy place. My training has changed a lot, so I started at Newcastle Pro Wrestling because that's where I grew up. And then eventually I moved to Sydney to challenge myself and try PWA training.
I was looking for something cheap to do in London, and there was a wrestling school 10 minutes down the road from me. I was expecting, oh, am I going to have to learn how to do flips? But it was so welcoming, it wasn't daunting at all. Everyone was so nice.
And then when I came here, I really had to push myself, and I think I did. I really think I broke through different barriers to push myself to get on the shows and to prove how good I am.
So when I came to PWA, they put you through your paces, and that's for a reason, to figure out who is willing to put their body on the line, literally, to make it as a pro wrestler. And as soon as I found wrestling, I realized it was something completely different, and it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is awesome.
Intergender wrestling is basically just a wrestling match. It's two people wrestling each other in the ring. That's how I describe it.
So they're irrespective of any gender. And it's not just male or female, but anything in between. Intergender wrestling wasn't even something I was really familiar with until I started trying out at PWA. I was initially a bit nervous when I walked into the tryout and there were only 3 women there in a sea of blokes, but it became very clear very early on that that wasn't going to be a problem. Everyone was treated equally, and that was explained from day one.
So when someone says wrestling is fake to me, I go, yeah, obviously. I think everyone knows that now.
It depends on what you define as fake. Wrestling is also wrestling. It's pro wrestling, and it's a very specific set of skills. If you think wrestling's fake, you're welcome to come and try out and just see how fake it is, because the bumps are very real, the moves are very real, and the mistakes hurt like hell.
In wrestling, right, it's never the cool bumps or moves that cause injury. It's something so silly. I'm pretty lucky. I chipped my front tooth. I had to get stitches in my chin when I was catching someone when they were diving.
My injuries have come from when I've done moves wrong. I've had whiplash more times than I can tell you. I've had a black eye. I had bruised ribs because I had a 100-kilo bloke fall on my chest.
I put my hand like this and I pulled it down and it was just a pool of blood. That happened and I was like trying to put the blood on my face to look cool. Well, my character, the Arm Collector, it comes from my love of technical wrestling and chain wrestling. So it's very much like mat-based, grounded stuff. And I really discovered that I love arm bars and working the arm. So my finisher is called the La Mystica or the La Jessica, where I wrap my legs around someone's head, spins around, and I make them land front first on the mat in a Fujiwara arm bar.
When it comes to figuring out my wrestling style, of course I'm still quite early on in wrestling, but I have to think, okay, I don't have the upper body strength, and I'm not I'm not the powerhouse that I wish that I could be. I've got to think, okay, how can I tell the most believable story?
but you just really have to focus on what your strengths are. Because I think everyone in pro wrestling has strengths, and once they realize what they are, that's when they become a star. I wish more people knew that Australian wrestling existed, because the amount of people I meet, they're like, oh, there's wrestling in Australia? I'm like, yeah, and it's really, really good. Like, probably the best in the world, and no one seems to realize it. So women's wrestling used to be referred to as the bathroom break. Now, completely different. You have females main eventing, single females against a male main eventing. You have so many more options now. So I think that's really cool to be so much more progressive today. Like, you can't give the audience an inch to think it's okay to treat women differently to how they treat the male wrestlers. So you have to treat them the same, no matter what. Like, just speaking from my personal experiences, I'm pretty safe in my PWA family.
But I mean, we live in the 21st century. It's a boys' club everywhere. And unfortunately, as a female, you learn that early, and you have to work twice as hard.
So I'm very lucky to have a very strong group of females constantly around me.
I don't wait for an invitation, I come barging straight in. They've had their time, and it's time it changed. If anyone has a problem with it, I'll meet you in the ring.